Welcome to Module 8 of BDAP 101, where we will be discussing income. Income is arguably one of the most important steps in determining if someone is eligible for the BDAP. It certainly is the first step in determining someone's eligibility for BDAP. So income eligibility for both our medication and insurance assistance programs are 500% of the federal poverty level. The income eligibility chart for the Iowa Health and Wellness Program assists you as case managers to determine the best benefit home for your client. The income and resource chart for Medicare and Medicaid assistance programs is added to help case managers and FBSs identify potential assistance programs for your clients who have Medicare. Please look out for a yearly chart to be updated in January with new FPL amounts. If a client has no income, the client should sign a no income statement that is available for you in the REMI resource library. It's also available in other languages. If a client's legally married spouse also has no income, they should sign a separate no income statement. These statements are good for 6 months from the date that they had a signature on them. And if your agency utilizes a Part C no income statement, we will accept the Part C income statement as long as it's dated within the last 6 months. If a client is paid in cash, the client should sign a cash income statement that is available in the REMI resource library. It's also available in other languages. These statements are also good for 6 months. And if your agency uses like a sliding scale or a Part C cash income statement, you can use those as well. Just please be sure that they're dated within the last 6 months from the date you're submitting the application. For clients who are on a fixed income, meaning they're getting a monthly benefit or a weekly benefit with a fixed amount that never changes, these are the acceptable verifications. A current year Social Security Retirement Benefits Award Letter, a current year Disability Award Letter or Supplemental Security Income Award Letter, a current Unemployment Benefit Statement, a current year Veteran Affairs Benefit Statement, the most recent private pension or retirement statement. For clients who might be receiving something like IPERS, which is the Iowa pension, they will likely be getting the same amount from the day that they start collecting, which could have been 10 years ago. And so if there is not a newer statement available, you just need to make a note of this in the comment box of the core section. You could also use the most recent long or short-term disability award letter that indicates the pay period length, such as they receive this weekly, bi-monthly, monthly, etc. Or if the client is receiving alimony or child support, we would expect to see recent documentation of that as well. For clients who are employed by someone else, they are not self-employed, acceptable verification includes pay stubs that show the name, the pay date, the rate of pay, and the frequency of pay. You only need to collect one pay stub, but we do encourage you to collect more if you cannot determine if the client will be within income guidelines. If a client does not receive pay stubs, they could receive a signed employer statement with dates, position, salary, and the phone number of the company that they're working for. This can be sent to you via email. Both of these things have to be dated within the last 90 days prior to the date of submission, and pay stubs must be legible. If you cannot read them, we will not be able to read them either. For clients who are self-employed, we would like to see their current year or their most recent year income tax return only if it's still representative of their current self-employed status. So if a client was self-employed in 2024, but now in 2025 they work for Union Pacific, you need to collect the Union Pacific pay stub versus relying on 2024 income taxes. So when you're using a tax return for a self-employed client only, it must include the federal 1040 form and any other supporting form that is tied to their income. So if they're self-employed, they should have a Schedule C. If they have rental property, they should have a Schedule E. If they have farming income, they should have a Schedule F. Those must be attached to the 1040 for us to accept their income. Additionally, an explanation of income should always accompany income verifications in the comment box of the core section. In that section, you're going to be explaining the documents they provided to you and their current year projection. Does the client expect to make more, less, or about the same as their previous tax return? A client may also submit their most recent 1099 form if they're a contract employee and it is still representative of their current self-employed status. And a client could also provide their most recent ledger or contracts. So think QuickBooks, spreadsheets, a ledger, a profit loss statement. We would also accept those. A note about taxes is that the BDAP is not tax experts, nor are we the tax authority, and we do not expect you to be either. So our best tip is to ask your client to explain to you in their own words what their tax statement says. And if you are struggling to determine which line on a tax form to use for annual income, please contact one of us in the BDAP. We will review the document prior to your submission and guide you. In this slide, I've included an acceptable pay stub example. A pay stub needs to show the following fields: the name of the company, the name of the employee, the pay schedule, the pay period, the pay date. Also needs to include their gross earnings and any deductions that are made on that pay stub. Occasionally, you may run into a client whose income is greater during the month of their review due to things like overtime or seasonal work. And in those cases, you may want to annualize the client's income. This means that you would spread out the income earned in that month over a 12-month to make it more regular. So please make a note of this in the comment box and request an exception to policy. You can upload your math in a separate document or provide your annualized income breakdown in the comment box or exception to policy box. So in order to annualize a client's income, you would take their year-to-date gross income divided by the number of weeks they worked at that job in the current year to determine a weekly average. If they started their job after the first of the year, you would subtract the current week of the year by the week number that they started and use that for the number of weeks worked at the job. You then take the weekly average, multiply that by 52 weeks to get the annualized amount, and then you take that annualized amount divided by 12 months to get a monthly income. So in order for this to work in REMI, we ask that you would enter the client's pay stubs as they are printed on their stubs in REMI. It will give you a notice that the client is over income. The second step is to contact a BDAP staff member to staff the case, request permission to annualize income, and request this exception to policy to use that annualized income amount. The third step is then to complete the BDAP application with the annualized income calculation noted in the comment box in the core section or exception to policy box. And from there, you would upload all supporting documentation and submit the application as normal. Here's an example of when it would be appropriate and how to annualize someone's income. In this example, a client exceeded 500% of the FPL in the most recent 30-day period due to overtime that was caused by short staffing issues at her employer. She does not expect that the overtime will continue, and her year-to-date total shows she earned well below the annual FPL. This is an appropriate scenario in which to annualize a client's income. So here you can see that we have selected, it's an annual re-enrollment, and we're choosing to select the exception to policy box. This case manager has already contacted the BDAP staff to staff the case and has received permission to move forward with submission. So in this box here, in the comment box of the core section, you would explain a summary of the income and why someone is still eligible for the program. So, client is a single female with a household size of 1. She works part-time during the school year, but on summer break, she works more hours, and this includes overtime. The client's overtime is expected to end by September 1st when she returns to school. The case manager is requesting an exception to policy to annualize the client's income. The client is within annual income guidelines when annualizing her income. The client's year-to-date total shows that she has only made $25,000 as of August 31st. So in this example, we take the $25,000, which is her year-to-date total, divide that by 35, the number of weeks in a year on the pay stub, to get that she's earning about $714 per week on average. We then multiply that 714 by 52 weeks in a year to arrive at $37,142 annually. That annual amount divided by 12 months means that on average, she has about $3,100 in monthly income. Therefore, she is income eligible for the BDAP. When you select the exception to policy box, it will generate a subform titled exception to policy. And in this example, you would use the exception requested, not eligible for ADAP, because technically the client would not be income eligible for BDAP without this exception. And again, all we have said is that please see the attached calculation for clients' annualized income, and you can simply copy and paste what you put in the comment box of the course section here. If you prefer to show your math by hand, you may upload it into the income verification tab, so long as you label it and provide the original pay stub.